Hi, I'm Tabitha Panas. I'm a conservationist in the Luss Hills of Iowa, and this is the Prairie Farm Podcast.
Tabitha, your title right now is something that is kind of always been true, right? At least professionally for you. And by the way, you gave us one of the best pieces of advice that I've passed on countless times. It's the first time we recorded with you.
Yeah.
On how do people find their thing, right? Like how do they find their calling? And you said, don't tell people
to chase their dreams.
Or do what they love. That's how you word it. Don't tell people to do what they love. Tell them to find a problem that they are passionate about helping find a solution to. And so your title reflects that now. And on this podcast, you are a Luss Hills prairie conservationist. And that has played out in different iterations. You were just telling me about kind of your first job, which was, what was the title of that organization that you were with?
So one of my first jobs right out of college was with the Conservation Corps of Iowa. I was a field crew member. So we traveled in a small crew of kids up and down the Luss Hills. They gave us a lot of like a crash course on fire training, chainsaw training, chemical application. We got a chemical applicator license, and then we just had a number of different project hosts that we got to work with, and it was just so awesome. I mean, being outside all day, every day, rain, snow, heat, whatever it was, cutting down cedar trees, prescribed fire, cutting invasive species, spraying. It's like hard, tough, dirty work. Yeah. And so that's why I said that was one of my most favorite and my most hated jobs at the same time. Like it was just so impactful. And I feel like, it was amazing. So
yeah. So you had that, and then you went from that to Pheasants Forever, right? For quite a while.
I was a Pheasants Forever farm bill biologist for almost 5 years here in Western Iowa. Started out in Denison and then moved here to Council Bluffs and did it here in the Luss Hills for a couple of years too, working with private landowners and helping them get connected to resources that could improve conservation on their farm or their land, improve wildlife habitat, water quality, all that. So that was also awesome. Yeah.
And then most recently you were with the NRCS, right?
Yeah. So,
USDA.
Since July of 2024, I was with the Natural Resources Conservation Service as a natural resources specialist. Kind of redundant there, but I liked it. And similar kind of role to the Pheasants Forever position. You know, I was working with private landowners to address resource concerns on their farm, helping them with technical and financial assistance where we can. You know, people might have problems or want to make improvements. It's all voluntary conservation that we do. So we'll go out and do a farm visit and see what we can do to solve their problems. You know, some people have some massive erosion concerns. Some people want to add diversity to their farm and work through some of our programs to, you know, add some plant diversity out there. So just different things like that.
So could you just walk us through, you don't even have to give your opinion on anything, but just walk us through the events of your job and people around you know's jobs starting February 1st this year?
Yeah. So starting this spring, with the changing administration, there's obviously been a lot of change in the objectives of USDA and the administration. So it was February 14th. I received an email first thing when I got in the morning that had been sent the evening before, just letting me know that, since I was less than a year with the organization, you're in a probationary period. So due to my probationary status, I had not performed, I guess, up to standards, and they were letting me go.
The standards were being there more than a year. That was the word standard. That's
pretty much, I know. So, I was obviously devastated to get that news. There was some inkling that might be happening, but we weren't sure. And being that I worked for USDA, I thought that would maybe be more safe than some other departments, but obviously
no like runway, no like, hey, you've got 2 weeks to finish your projects.
No, it was basically like, my supervisor had to meet with me that day, turn in all my equipment. And that was the last day. And it was very confusing because, that letter was, it it didn't give information about benefits. It was just very basic, like you are done. Thank you.
Wow. Were there any benefits? Like, what
so
were
I
they?
did end up finding out after emailing HR, waiting around a week, trying to figure things out. I mean, I rushed to try to get a prescription I needed right away because it's like $500 without insurance. And so I wasn't able to get it. And I'm like, well, let's just hold off here. And it ended up that I did have 30 days on my insurance. So that was good. So, fast forward a little bit, come March, there was a Supreme Court order that reversed those terminations essentially. So stating that federal probationary employees that were terminated based on performance needed to be reinstated.
Based on what? What was their...
Based on, I guess I'd have to look back at it, and I'm just kind of quoting from my mind here. I might not be 100% correct on this, but it was just essentially based on the fact that, these are not, I think they were trying to say that like these weren't based on performance. They were more of a mass layoff style, termination. And so they needed to go through other means to achieve those layoffs, I guess. It's been a while since I've read it. But so then I was super excited to be reinstated to my position. I had already actually accepted another position with the U.S. Post Office. I was going to go be a mail carrier. I'm like, I love to be outside. I love walking. I'm going to do this. I'm going to see what this is like. And so I was like, had already signed and accepted and done everything to be a mail carrier and was ready to do that. And then I get reinstated. So then I'm just kind of waiting. And I didn't want to tell the post office too soon because what if I don't, like by the time, they're like, you're reinstated here in like 3 weeks. And so it's like, well, I want to get in my desk and make sure I really am before I tell the post office. So I was kind of in this limbo of like, what should I do? I decided I definitely wanted to return. And they had me. Well, I mean, if I could return today, I would. It's just such important work, like the things that we're doing, the educational piece with landowners. It is just an amazingly rewarding job, honestly. And it's so desperately needed in the state of Iowa, you know. We need more conservation funding, not less. We need people to have incentives to no-till. We need people to have incentives to implement cover crops, implement diversity on their farms, we essentially have half of our topsoil left in our 160-year modern farming history. So it was estimated that, I can't remember, I think about 2 to 3 feet of topsoil. We're now down to like 16, 18 inches of topsoil on average in the state of Iowa. And topsoil equals the ability to produce food. So we are dwindling away at our ability to produce food. It's being washed downstream. We've had a lot of drought. We've had a lot of wind events lately. Just last week, it was like the sky was a brown cloud around here, and who knows where that soil was from. I mean, it could have been from way south. It could have been from right here.
Well, we had that from Oklahoma earlier in the spring.
And I mean, Illinois last week had a dust storm, like a true
duster.
Dust storm.
There was, I think, I want to say like a 70-car pileup in Kansas earlier this spring too, because of a big dust storm. And a few people lost their lives too. Very sad.
I was out in the Sandhills region in early April this spring. I got a friend out there who grew up on a ranch, and we go out there and shed hunt in the spring, and it's a ton of fun. I love seeing the prairie plants out there and just that difference in ecosystem and truly an ecosystem that's definitely changed from its original, players and members, but still largely intact. The ponderosa pine has really moved in, and there's a few other tree species that are native to America, but like really haven't been a part of that ecosystem for very long, that have really settled in there. I think there's way more cottonwoods now than there were historically. I think that might have been the other one that he was telling me about. But it's a beautiful place. Love going out there. And his family is just so generous. And so I was sitting down to dinner with his, we were actually eating some Nebraska elk burgers. Seeing elk, he sent me a grip and grin a couple years ago with his bull he shot, and seeing someone hold up a grip and grin with an elk in a soybean field is kind of it's a weird paradigm
funny
to think through. But we're sitting there eating some of his Nebraska elk. I was talking with his dad, who's lived on the land his entire life, guy in his 60s, grew up on a ranch out there and is now working on a different ranch to this day. That's all his career has been. And, a guy who probably, I would say is a lot of his politics probably aren't the same as most people concerned about the environment. I'll put it that way. Mm-hmm. But he said to me, I really feel that, based on what I see going on, especially in Sandhills, I don't really know historically how the Dust Bowl affected that region of the country, but definitely parts of Southwest Nebraska were a part of that.
Oh yeah.
But he was talking more into Kansas, which he's got. I think he might have some family down there. I think he has a son that lives down there too. He's like, just seeing how a lot of the shelter belt plantings that were established to get us out of the Dust Bowl by the USDA, mm-hmm.
where
I think, isn't that what created the NRCS? Didn't the NRCS come out of the Dust Bowl? I think that
was. You're correct. It was in a response to the Dust Bowl. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's like, I think we're like headed to that again, because we're committing a lot of the same mistakes that we did then. And it was just really interesting hearing that perspective from a guy who has lived so close to the land for so long, and who isn't, it's easy to see, politically when someone starts, and we got this problem coming and we can expect this, because that's their echo chamber there. He doesn't live in that echo chamber. Yeah. He's just looking at it with his own two eyes and with a whole lot of experience.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm calling it a duster that we had last week, because that's what the people who survived them in the Dust Bowl in no man's land.
Yeah.
I'll keep preaching it. Everyone needs to read or listen to the book, The Worst Hard Time. You just do. However bad you think the Dust Bowl was, it was worse.
Yeah.
And that book will put it into perspective for you. We had a true duster last week, sweep through Illinois, but even here, driving home from work, I got footage of it, dust everywhere. It looks like it's raining, but it's just dust.
Yeah.
And I was driving home at 5:30 and it's light out till 8:30. So and it was already, I was driving with my headlights on.
Yeah. Yeah. And these are a little bit more, intermittent weather events. It takes some high winds, it takes weeks of no rain. And then we have these Dust Bowl like effects. But even in a good year, even when we're, have a lot of moisture and we're not seeing this symptom occur, we're losing an average of a dime width of soil every year on our farms, wind and water erosion. So even in a year when we're not seeing the Dust Bowl, that's what's so kind of insidious about these things, is it's like, you don't see it. Yeah. It's happening so slowly, and it's happening over a long period of time. So unless you're listening to people who study this stuff, are tuned into this stuff, who's going to walk across the ground? If you walked outside tomorrow and your front doorstep was a dime width lower, would you ever know? So it's like these things are just happening year by year, but you stack up stacks of dimes over a decade, over 4 decades. Yeah. And we're really starting to see these effects. I talked to a farmer in Carroll County, Iowa, and he said that his, I think, grandfather was around in Dust Bowl times, and they had a fence at the bottom of this hill, and they had so much soil erosion washing off of their hillsides that they had to build another fence. That fence got completely washed over, where it was completely underground now, and they had to build another fence on top of that fence, and that one got washed over. They had 3 stacks of fences at the bottom of a hill, because that's how much soil is moving downhill. It's burying our fences.
That's crazy.
And it takes a strong experience. I remember another thing you said at the very in our first podcast with you was that if we always ask that question, right? If you could change one thing about the world, and you're like, I wish everyone would just like be in a prairie for a little bit. My dad.
We quote you often on the podcast, Tabitha.
We do. Yeah, we do. Yeah, you for I don't know, for your age, I guess you are
A lot of wisdom.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
outsizing
you.
wisdom. But Dad, he quote the very beginning roots of his conservation journey. Like there was a whole thing with a pheasant, but way before that, there was him at like 11 years old getting stuck in a tractor at the bottom of a hill because all the soil had eroded to the bottom of that hill in a waterway, and now it was a few inches. It was he calls it slick as snot, and he couldn't get out of it, and that ingrained in his brain. I don't know if it was because his grandpa yelled at him for it because he got it stuck or whatever it was, like something ingrained in his brain. This is a problem. Our soil leaving, and
Carol has such a mechanical mind, like he's just very, like he understands, he can look at things, just know how they work. And he's like, wow, as a kid, all this dirt isn't from here. It's from up there. Mm-hmm. And that means that up there doesn't have any of this anymore.
Yeah.
That's not, and then in Carol's words, that's not good.
That's not good. Someone brought a cedar back the other day, a native cedar. And the vast majority of people that use them treat them really well. But this specific individual did not. And what did he say? He took one look at it, and what did he say?
Carol just looks at it and goes, that's terrible.
Like they had so abused the native cedar.
No.
He just man, that is terrible.
It's just like a simple mechanical concept.
Yeah.
And that was his response.
Man.
That's funny.
So let's go back. You said no to actually, I think being a mail carrier would be really cool for like a while. I don't know. I'm too extroverted.
Carol was a mail carrier for a short time.
He was.
And he got a little frostbite, didn't he?
Got frostbite, slipped on the ice one time, got bit by a dog.
Oh, yeah. The whole gamut.
You would love it, though. You would love it. Yeah. So you chose going back to the USDA.
Yeah.
When was that? And then what happened?
So that was sometime around March, late March. And so I get reinstated. I'm super excited to be back. My coworkers are super excited to have me back. I start jumping back into projects right away. Not only maybe a week later, in the news is now, the Supreme Court has kind of reversed that order that reinstated me and said that federal agencies no longer have to reinstate people. And so we were reading about different federal employees who were told they were going to be reinstated and then weren't. I already was fully reinstated. So am I safe now? We just weren't sure. So it was essentially like probationary employees seem to be on the chopping block again. Like they could just turn around and now you can fire probationary employees in this way. So they had already offered the deferred resignation program once before in the spring. And I was like, no, I will not take that. Essentially it's saying that you will be able to get paid through September 30th. You'll be on administrative leave and you, will have that time, I guess, to find a new job. See your way out. As they're attempting to make government more efficient and save dollars. So that's kind of the thought process behind that resignation program. So I originally never took that, but after being fired, rehired, and then potentially being fired again with talks of reduction in force happening later on, even if I make it through to July and get out of my probationary period, there still are future reductions in force looming. So I chose to take the resignation program. Fire me once, shame on you. Fire me twice. I was kind of like, I can't be fooled and fired again on this.
I don't blame you.
And so I took the resignation. And so now I'm in the process of just looking for other employment. I've applied for a few pretty exciting opportunities, but I'm also just kind of taking time to like step back, do some writing. I feel like writing really helps me,
great.
Make pros and cons lists about things. In a world where you can really do anything, like how do you make the most impact? It's like, where do you start? What do you could do a lot of different things.
What are you finding? Where do you feel like you'd make the most impact?
Well, right now I kind of am focusing on like career things. So, I've kind of dabbled in doing other fields altogether, like maybe now I don't want to work in conservation. I want to, like, for example, my dad's a home appraiser. He makes good money. He works all the time, but he doesn't have to. I know I could be a home appraiser and work like part-time. And then I would have all my other time to do these awesome volunteer opportunities that, in a perfect world, they'd be paid opportunities, but like my work through the Iowa Prairie Network, I just recently became a board member of the Loess Hills Preservation Society as well.
Yeah.
Actually, that might still kind of be in the works at this moment. I don't know if they've officially voted me on yet, but I very likely will be. So, I have a lot of different projects that I'm working on, and I think it would be great to, maybe not be so drained with all of the conservation stuff I do all day at work, and then just have my free time to pursue this. So
yeah, time is a gift for sure. And so it's good to see that you've been able to, make the most out of it. But obviously we felt for you when
Kent was like, man, if you're trying to be more efficient, it's an oversight to fire Tabitha. It was like, what are we doing here?
Well, that was such the, all the talk behind it, we need to get back to a meritocracy. And I'm like, look, if you want to get rid of all the corporate garbage that happens, or not corporate, it's
red tape.
There's the
bureaucracy.
Word. Bureaucracy. That's the main one. You want to get rid of the bureaucracy of something, and people having, privileges that they haven't earned. That was not the way to do it.
Just axe the people excited about it.
It just continues the bureaucratic process, in my opinion.
Yep.
So,
in my personal opinion, it has not been very thoughtful. I, again, personal opinion, think there is a lot of bureaucracy. There is a lot of red tape. There is a lot of ways that we could slim things down so we don't have to have 45 people look at something and take all this time and then it bounces around here to there to this place. We have a lot of paperwork. We have a lot of processes. We have, a lot of things that could totally be streamlined. And in my opinion, I don't think it was a very, thoughtful way of going about that. We'll see what happens. I know that we were pretty understaffed at the Natural Resources Conservation Service in Iowa as a whole, was pretty understaffed prior to these cuts being made. So they're definitely bare bones now. And potentially they'll be hiring again when we have a new fiscal year. So nothing that I have signed or anything, taking that resignation for this time, I'm resigning from my current position at this time, but I'm not taking anything off the table for the future, you know? Mm-hmm. So that was one thing that was really important to me, when making that decision, is I could work here again in the future, when things are more stable and,
Yeah.
I'm curious, on boots on the ground level, rewinding 8 months, what you were doing in the office. How were you helping conservation? I know a big part is educating landowners, and the NRCS, when we work with them, which is super important. super important part. Mm-hmm. But what were you doing that you went home at night and you're like, I made a difference today?
Yeah. So, kind of just an average day is any day could look so different. There are a number of different federal programs that we work with. So the Conservation Reserve Program was one that I worked with. I love that program. That's the bread and butter program for pheasant habitat in Iowa, for prairie reconstructions in Iowa. The Conservation Reserve Program's huge. It's administered by the Farm Service Agency, but the Natural Resources Conservation Service provides technical assistance. So I loved going out in the spring. Right now, one thing that folks with NRCS might be doing would be helping people with planting, right? So how do I plant this? Where do I get a drill? What seed do I plant? What am I doing? Somebody who's enrolled in the program.
Right.
It might be having someone who planted last fall and it's starting to come up already. And this is one of my favorite things to do, is go out when people are like, I think I need to spray this. This is a failed seeding. No, it's a prairie reconstruction. There's going to be a lot of annual weeds. What you need to do right now is mow and point out all the little baby plants that are coming in and be like, here, look at this little seedling. Look at this little partridge pea. Look at this. This looks like it might be side oats, but grasses are hard to tell, so, that all sorts of stuff. So that is super fun, making sure that people aren't completely killing a stand and wasting tons of their money that they put into this,
You also taught us that if it's an unidentified flower, just say, oh, I think it's an aster.
That's right. So many asters, and they're around forever. They're a bunch of them are already up.
There's only 1 million asters out there.
You know what? It might be in the aster family because, like, even I think stiff goldenrod is like a cousin. You know, so no matter what, you kind of sound like an expert. Ends up being cytosphroma. Kent just has no idea. I don't think Kent's ever even seen cytosphroma in real life.
Yeah, right. I spend about what do you think? Maybe 4 weeks every summer digging, other native grasses.
It is so hard to keep our cytosphroma pure. I'm like, we just need to move it to a field in the middle of nowhere, like a field on an island, you know, in Lake Superior.
Birds would still seed it.
Oh man, it's a nightmare. Speaking of which, Tabitha, you want a job digging out little blue cytosphroma 3 hours away?
Yeah, we'll provide the shovel.
Yeah. Sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yeah. Man. So
I think where the importance is too, especially there's an outsized importance in Iowa. I obviously knew we were very low on public acres in Iowa compared to other states. But we were doing a coffee time episode yesterday and I was doing some reading on it and they had a chart on there that was the ratio of public land to private land. And Iowa ranks 50th, or I guess tied for 49th with, I think,
Delaware, maybe.
Yeah, Connecticut.
Some tiny,
Rhode Island.
Tiny.
I think Rhode Island is
it might be Rhode Island.
Little.
Yeah. So almost entirely privately owned. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about that, the decisions being made, the environmentally minded decisions that are being made by a lot of people instead of where you go out to Nevada, who has more, they have the highest ratio of public land to private land. You know, that's just a handful of people then making an outsized decision, which are elected officials, you know, or at least appointed by or hired by elected offices, I guess.
Yeah.
So having the NRCS here to help these people make decisions who, let's be honest, for a lot of them, it's pretty far down on their list of decisions that they have to make every day because they're running a business on that farm. And yes, this is a part of it, but there's like 10 other things on that list that dominate their day. And so having somebody who can go and say, yeah, you know, let me assist you with this, critically important.
Definitely. And I mean, it's free consultation as well. You know, we're a completely free resource, but you're right. The conservation and land decisions across the state of Iowa are by the vast majority just being made by our fellow Iowans, our farmers, our landowners. You know, I think it's around 3% of the state that's public. So 97% of the land is privately owned. And I mean, it was an honor to be able to work on all those farms every day. I got to see places that, you know, aren't open to the public. People don't get to come here, like, you know, just walk across this place and see it. So it's pretty amazing. But you're right. Those decisions can get far down on the line, but I think a lot of Iowans really do care about not only, I mean, and a lot of the things we did, they're not just for the greater like feel goods. They're not just like plant a tree and feel goods. They're like, these are extremely important to maintaining your profitability this year and profitability in the future.
Yes.
Right. So it's hard to measure those things, but they do have those things in mind. So
what is when you recommend a conservation practice to a farmer, what is the most common given reason for why they won't be able to, in their words, or can't, or aren't going to, or you know what I mean? Go along with such and such practice. Yeah.
I think a lot of times people might be nervous about, first off, the financial implications. You know, it's hard to trust anybody who's going to tell you like this is going to help save you money on your farm, you know? So I think people are concerned with the financial impacts of it. However, I mean, like through the Conservation Reserve Program, we're not in a sign up right now, but like when we were in signups, you know, they're paying 90% of the cost share up front, 10% in year 5, and then you're getting an annual payment every year. So like that's money that you can safely rely on, you know, and we can target that to your acres that are not yielding very well, those high, dry, knobby hilltops that have the soil washed off of them, or, you know, a low area that's so soggy you don't even harvest it sometimes. So, you know, those are kind of easy. But then after you get past that, like, you know, I am a business owner. I need to make decisions for my business so my family and my business can survive this year and survive in the years to come. Then after you get past that initial worry, I think the next biggest thing is just fear of change. We've always done this way. It's hard to change. And that's true for a lot of farmers, but it's true for a lot of people in the population in general. And I am the same way. You know, I will do something the same dumb way forever because that's how I've been doing it. You know,
right,
it's just like, I know it works this way.
Yeah.
So like, even if I could save time, money, anything, you know, this is just how I know how to do it. You know, I type with 2 index fingers.
Really?
No.
I was going to say, you got to be the age of Mavis Beacon, you know? Like,
Oh my
No,
goodness.
you guys
no,
ever
I'm
have to
just
do
kidding.
that, like Mavis Beacon and stuff, where you had to like do the typing games? That was one thing at my school that they, like, that district excelled at teaching us how to type.
You were going to type.
Oh yeah. And
That's awesome.
I bet I can type, like, I mean, I'm not as good now because I don't type every day anymore, but I bet peak Kent typing, I bet I was over 80 words a minute.
If my mom had, that's pretty good. If my mom had her way, she was our, what do you call that, curriculum director at my grade school. If she had her way, there would have been no computers in that school. And we took cursive, we took logic, and then we took cursive. I remember that every day from like 5th through 8th grade.
Man, you must have learned nothing.
I didn't learn a single thing. But we did end up doing typing. And you know, you had the little orange covers on your keyboard. You guys do the little cover. Yeah. No, where you weren't, because you weren't allowed to look at the keys. I look at those keys all the time, Miss Susan. I see that, like, I didn't need the orange cover.
We had the covers. We had these things, these hoods that would go over your hands while you typed. But
wow.
Almost like you're sandblasting in there or something.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Man.
Protective
the 80s,
shield.
Crazy time. You didn't have typing class?
I did, but I don't remember learning very much.
Oh, that's why you still type with your index fingers.
Well, the best.
I don't really. I'm just joking. I hate to throw my dad under the bus, but he's kind of
a hunt and peck guy.
2 or 3 finger. not using enough fingers on that keyboard. You can really.
My dad still asks us to get him to Craigslist or to Gmail. Make sure you leave it open on the screen so I can see it when I get in the office.
Yeah.
Okay, Dad.
Gotcha.
I think it's good though that you guys had like handwriting, because handwriting is degrading.
They brought it back.
Oh, really?
Iowa brought it back. They brought cursive back.
Good.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing for kids to learn.
Oh yeah, but I mean, by golly, they can press A on that controller. You know, they're quick. Man.
So one of the concerns that has been mentioned by people who were opposed to those layoffs, which would include myself, especially in the conservation realm. So it wasn't just NRCS, it was U.S. Forest Service, I think, was the other really big one. National Park Service had some. EPA was another kind of tied in there. But the concern is, are we going to be able to, as a nation, attract people to these positions going forward now that there's this big moment of uncertainty? And you've really done a nice job laying that out. It's like, well, you know, I don't know what to expect. I'd like my job back, but I don't know that I'm not just going to get the rug pulled on me again. So I better take the sure thing now, which is I get paid until September. Yeah. And when you think about kids, we talked about this with Ryan Kurtz, and it was a great discussion there, because he is working at a college that prepares kids to go into it's Hawkeye Community College, right? Is the name of that, up in Waterloo. Mm-hmm. They prepare kids. They have a really strong, one of the best in the state, program for like natural resource type of career paths. Yeah. And a big part of that for a while has been, you can look to getting a job within the USDA, work in the NRCS, work at an FSA office, maybe soil and water jobs. Now those are a little different because I think those are county supported jobs, or going to Fish and Wildlife Services, which I think they had some cuts as well. Maybe be a forester or something like that.
Yeah.
Do you see that there being a long-term negative impact on people wanting to go pursue these jobs, do you think?
Yeah, I really am concerned about the field of conservation and young people getting into this field right now, especially. It's already a competitive field to get in, and it's already
very
not a
competitive.
super high paying field either.
Right.
They pay you on feel goods. You got to be okay with that. So I think it is really tough. And I think a lot of the avenues that kids use to get into the field are being taken away. For one example is AmeriCorps and the Conservation Corps. Like that is huge for getting to meet people, gaining skills. Like I walked in there like knowing hardly anything and just like walked out of there like a hot shot. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like